Welcome to the Long Island View. This is another episode. I haven't seen you in such a long time. It feels like it's been weeks since I've
Really?
seen you. It feels that way.
It feels the opposite to me.
Really?
Yes.
Why?
We've been here a lot.
But, you know, I got to tell you, Tommy, every week that we do this show for cable, we seem, you know, when we said that we were going to interview people from Long Island who had these special abilities or these talents, never did I ever anticipate that we would get the influx of individuals, especially who we have here tonight on the show.
Yes.
I mean, we went from, I think a couple of weeks ago, we had the woman who, she died 3 times, and then she came back, and she told us all about
I love
dying.
Love
We had the guy who invented an apparatus to somehow save kids on the ball field at the schools.
That's got to be my proudest.
I mean,
my proudest one.
It just seems that every week we find these absolute incredible people that are here, right here on our island. And, you know, even though Long Island is only, you know, so many miles wide, do you know how wide Long Island is?
120.
No, that's long.
Oh, 11, I think.
I thought it was 11 miles wide,
11,
right?
I think it's
11 by 120, it's not, I think it's less than 120
No, I think
miles.
it's like 126 or something like that.
Well, see, that's something for you guys to come to set us straight on as far as how long Long Island is. But I think he's right when he says it's 11 miles. But if you calculate the amount of people that live on Long Island, I think Long Island, population-wise, is more than the state of Rhode Island, is it not?
It's like the 7th biggest city or in the country. Or
Something like
state
that.
or something.
And people don't realize that. So if you combined all of that and you say, well, how many people are on Long Island? The talent that is here is just
It's amazing.
overwhelming. I mean,
Amazing.
between people like Pat Benatar, Billy Joel, and that's just from the musicians end of it. I mean, we've had Tesla. In fact, his museum, we were
Yeah.
fortunate enough.
The documentary,
Uh,
which they are also going to be on the show in a future show.
Right. I
I
mean,
talked
they
with them the other day.
turned that into a museum out there.
Yeah.
I mean, Tesla, for God's sakes. Tesla, the guy who, in my opinion, invented electricity, you know, not the other, what's the other guy's name?
Edison.
Is that his name? See, I don't even know. But Edison really didn't invent electric. He invented DC current, in case you folks don't
Yeah.
understand, remember that. Well, not that you remember, because, you know, I don't know how old you are, but the point is Tesla created alternate current
Got screwed.
and got screwed royally.
We would probably, right now, be having free electricity because that was his whole goal.
But do you know why
Yeah,
he didn't go through with it?
Absolutely.
All right, and I got to tell you, it was
Do it in
because-
England.
No, it was Chase,
Right.
J.P.
Yeah,
Morgan
but
Chase.
they remember they were in England. We at the documentary.
Yeah, but J.C., if you don't know about Tesla, and we're going to have the folks here on the show coming up soon, but J.P. Morgan Chase put the squash on that deal
Yeah.
because J.C. Morgan Chase didn't know how to make money on it. Tesla was creating electrical AC power and said everybody can have free power. Morgan didn't like it, so he said, you know what, I'm not going to fund it, and ultimately Tesla wound up dying a very old, broke man in a hotel, right?
Where we saw the documentary in the New York.
Oh, that's right, it was in the New York
That's
hotel.
where he lived and died.
And it really is, it's sad, but you know what, I don't want to get
But
into that.
don't you
because-
agree, though, Tom, that's what this show is about? I mean, like how amazed were we that night in New York when we went and saw the documentary?
Yeah,
I really didn't know about this guy. I mean, and to learn what I've learned, and since then I've really looked him up. It is amazing, and to think that's just one, and how many more we're going to have. I mean, look at this young lady we have tonight. I mean, it's the talent in here on
It's-
Long
it's-
Island
it's amazing.
is endless,
It's
and
unreal.
I think we could do this show for how long you want to go?
forever.
50 years?
Well, I don't know, you may not be around, but I will. But I just want to just reiterate on one thing with Tesla. You know, people like Tesla, who Tesla was doing it because he wanted to do it,
That's
not
right.
because he had to do it. And too many people like J.P. Morgan Chase did it for a financial gain, for his own pocket. And I think if society, you know, I always say that if people jumped to help as fast as they jumped to criticize,
Mhm.
we'd be in a better world today. And I think that's why I enjoy doing this show so much, because
Well,
we get
you know,
such a...
there's a thing, you know, that you support rather than, than hate. You know, I read a thing yesterday that you don't see people hating losers. They
Right.
hate winners.
They hate winners. Yeah, I know. It's just amazing. So that brings us to our guest here today, because when I say if people jump to help as fast as they jump to criticize, from what I understand, from what I read from the pamphlet, this is a lot of anger management, and this particular guest
And how to
actually
deal with it.
dabbles in anger management. The first thing I thought of when you said that we were going to have somebody on the show from anger management, I thought of that guy, what's his name?
Us?
No, no, yeah, right. What was the guy who did the show Anger Management? One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest.
Charlie Sheen.
No, the other actor. What was his name?
Jack Nero?
No, not Robert
Jack.
De Niro. Jack Nicholson.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Who, and that's what I'm thinking. And then we have this incredible young lady that's here with us today. So with no further ado, it's up to you. Go.
We have the one and only Eileen Lickenstein.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much.
And Eileen is also a holistic coach. She's a tapping coach. You just run the whole gambit. So fill us in and what you're doing. And I
Did you
know.
say tapping coach?
Yeah.
What, you mean tapping shoes?
No,
I
no.
knew you were going to say
Tapping.
that.
I have to say that.
EFT tapping, emotional freedom technique. See, I'm feeling more relaxed already because all the serotonin is happening.
Can I be quite honest with you?
What?
If I'm at my desk at the law firm and I start doing that, they're going to be calling in Dr. Dow. All right.
But I'll tell you one thing.
Do I do that
it
behind
really
closed
works.
doors?
You can.
Yes.
It's up to you.
You know when I do it? Because and Vicky also, me and Vicky do it during the day with tapping. But we had a guest in a daytime show, and she was a tapping coach. And this is what she does, is she taught us how to tap. And you kind of like, come on, really. But a couple times in traffic where like
You
couldn't-
tap.
I do. I still
And
do.
does it stop you?
It calms you.
Elaine, explain to us what
Eileen.
tapping. Eileen, explain to us what I'm going to say that 6 times during the show.
It's okay.
Eileen, explain to us what tapping is and why it works.
Okay, I'll be happy to. It works because serotonin, which is a feel-good hormone that many people don't have enough of naturally, serotonin is naturally increased when you tap on these specific meridian points, okay, the same points that perhaps acupuncturists put needles in, but we don't do needles with this modality, we tap. So serotonin is increased up to the part of the brain, the amygdala, that deals with emotion and feelings, so you feel good no matter what. And cortisol, which is a stress hormone, is released. And this is the stress hormone that is in the big bellies. So sometimes I see people who want to lose weight and they've tried every diet. We tap on it and it helps them to lose weight. And of course, if they eat healthfully and exercise, the whole thing goes wonderfully. And tapping is a huge part of that. In addition to the physical tapping, as a practitioner, I guide people into the thoughts and words that have to do with their circumstances, that their negative situations that brought them to me in the first place.
It's actually almost into a Zen, right?
Well, Zen has so many
Yeah.
connotations and
like,
definitions.
I have done it. I've done
Uh-huh.
and I still do it. I don't do it all the time, but when I think about it, I do it. Like if I'm, and actually Janine and I, she was like, "Do you really believe in it?" I go, "I do believe in it." And so her and I tried it, and she said, "I actually do feel a calming come over me." But I think the more I know. I think
I'm trying.
the more relaxed. Well, you got to watch how to do it. You got to hit the right spots. But the more, I think I like to do it in bed with the lights out when it's very calm, and like you can almost go into
Okay.
into a Zen. I definitely think there's something to it.
There absolutely is a lot to it. As the coach, as the active listener to someone who may also be seeing a therapist and numerous other people on their support system, I am very, very intuitive. So as a coach, they tell me I have to hear their story, their background, just as one would tell a therapist perhaps in an intake. And then while we tap, I know what to say. It's not silent tapping. Their thoughts don't run free in this if I'm guiding them.
Right.
So it always starts with a negative setup phrase. Do you want me to do a little now?
Sure, yeah.
Okay, I'll do the thing about, oh, okay. Even though my GPS wasn't working this morning and I was beside myself, I fully and deeply love and accept myself. Now, not everyone could say that. I can, so I have to gauge or ask. Some people just say, I accept myself. Some say, it's okay. Depends. Okay, even though I ended up being so late visiting a first-time client in her home, and I felt horrible about that, and it was awful in the process of being late without my GPS. I fully and deeply love and accept myself. Even though I didn't check this out yesterday when I was getting an inkling that something might be wrong, I can make mistakes, and I fully and deeply love and accept myself. So those are the somewhat negative setup phrases, and I do that. I accept myself. Everyone has to say something like that at the end of the negative, and then I just will go through one round quickly here, starting with the negative. I kind of knew the GPS may not have been working right, and I didn't do a thing. What's that about? Did I think it would fix itself magically? Yeah, I did. No, actually, I forgot that it wasn't working right. So I was on my block and I ran in and got tape and thought maybe I could adhere it to the, charger. And I tried that because I thought that was the problem, but it kept unplugging itself, and I didn't have time to go to Best Buy and buy a new charger or something. And I just went inside and did the MapQuest, and it was like a whole new format on MapQuest that's been there forever. So it wasn't getting me to her house in any event, and I knew how to get to the town. So I said, okay, I'll just drive to the town and then I'll ask around because I had her address. And that's what I did. And it was a bit complicated, but I got there eventually, and somehow she was okay with it. Thank goodness. I didn't create more anxiety on her part. It was just about me. So I pulled in her driveway and I did a little tapping and I did some deep breathing, and then I drank a lot of water because I have to drink a lot of water when I get stressed, as most people do. And then I went in and one of the things I did with her was teach her how to tap. It was awesome. She went from over a 10 and being at a level of distress about her situation currently to 3 in less than 10 minutes. She couldn't believe it. Of course, we don't know how long that will last. Time will tell, which is why I'm seeing her again on Saturday. And I also taught her all the mindfulness-based stress reduction, kind of deep breathing, relaxation breathing, following the breath, and the beginnings of how to meditate. I did guided relaxations with her, and I was only able to do all that for her personally because she trusted me, thank goodness, even though I was so late. And she was able to tell me her story, Without that, it would have worked somewhat, which is how I can train a group to do these things, and it works. And someone's on the hot seat, and it works. But I will say, for excellent, the best personal results, it's really good to have a mentor or teacher or coach one-on-one with this kind of stuff.
Now, let me ask you, being that you actually did just tap, did you calm yourself down?
I'm excited now to be on TV. I'm not nervous. I've been on TV a lot, actually. Right. So I wasn't nervous about doing this.
No, but you were nervous about getting here because you were lost.
Right,
GPS,
I was lost again.
I'm not a GPS guy either.
I was lost again. So I'm saying, this day, what's with
Yeah.
is it a full moon? Is Mercury off? I was getting like that, a little silly. But no, once I walked in and I had enough time, I was good.
Where did tapping originate from?
Well, first, the person who created this version that I just did, it's called the shortened version or the short version, is Gary Craig. And he, that was like about 15, 20 years ago. And he studied with various kinesiologists.
But is it nerve points? Is it?
It's acupuncture points
Okay.
on the
So
meridians.
Those exact points that you were just tapping, those specific, I was watching you do something with your hair, those
This.
certain points
Tapping.
of the head and the body, those are the same points that an acupuncturist would put a needle in order to attack the nerve.
It could be.
All right, my understanding with an acupuncturist is that the needle is put in to, in other words, relocate the nerve, or to maneuver the nerve off of something that may be impinging or encroaching on the nerve.
I really don't know. All I know is this tapping on these points opens up the meridians so that they call it chi energy.
guy's
I think
name
it's
is-
actually the
flows
same
freely.
kind of.
What was this guy's name?
Dr. Gary Craig.
Where's Gary Craig today?
He's retired. His daughter has taken over his teachings and his EFT Universe website.
And how long have you been doing it?
6 years.
And how do you feel since you started?
Wonderful, much better. I was in a good place when I started this, and I took it on because I at the time was collaborating professionally with an eating disorders therapist, and we were doing things like breathe, don't eat, like if you're going to open the refrigerator and binge or something, do some deep breathing. But
Were you overweight?
No, I was never overweight.
But you were binge eating?
She was, no.
Oh, no, okay.
We were teaching that.
Oh.
We were running workshops, breathe, don't eat.
I see.
And she's the therapist, and I was teaching the relaxation breathing. However, she heard about this tapping, this EFT, to reduce cravings, which it does, and lose weight. So she, as an eating disorders therapist, and I'm her friend and colleague, grabbed me and said, "Let's go to this." I said, "Okay."
So it's actually a deterrent in another way.
You
right?
also mentioned that you're
Yeah.
an anger management coach.
Uh-huh.
When I think of anger management, I think of obviously people who get angry very easily. Maybe a lot of the people that commit this road rage is a perfect example. So when you coach people under this anger management, are you coaching them under court orders? You coach them under their own desires to be coached? How do
Either,
you-
both. I
both?
get both streams of clients in.
So the court system does recognize you as a
Yes.
professional in your field, and they will assign certain individuals to you to coach for anger management.
They don't assign them to me. They tell the
Caseworker.
no, the person who needs to take the class, perpetrator. That's the
Okay.
word I was
Good.
trying to think of. You could have helped me on that one. The perpetrator. They say find an anger management coach. You could go on the web, or here's a list. They do
Right.
it like that.
So
So
they'll come to you.
yes.
Now, let's assume for a minute that, somebody has this anger problem and they come to you. What is your method of teaching?
Well, I was certified to be an anger management specialist, and it's recognized throughout the courts in the U.S. And there's a curriculum, that I learned. And not being a therapist, I call myself a teacher. It's a psychoeducational model. So I'm a teacher, coach of anger management. I'm not a therapist. However, I can call myself a healthcare professional with this, I have found out. So anyway, half of this curriculum is actually the stress management, stress reduction, relaxation techniques that I was just referring to, with the relaxation breathing, with meditation, to encourage exercise, things like that for a healthy lifestyle. And while I was in that training, I asked the trainers if they'd heard of EFT, and they had just recently heard of it about 6 years ago. And I said, well, I think this goes right in. They say, you could do it. So I've been doing it if the person seems like they would accept it. You know, I kind of,
Is there a certification for this?
for EFT?
Yes.
I am certified.
You are, sir.
Yeah. So, anyway, so the anger management is partially the techniques for stress reduction, and it's certain strategies and suggestions, like rule number 1, if you feel like you're going to blow your top or explode, leave. Leave.
It's hard for people to do, though.
Yeah, but I talk to them, and they have to get in the habit of
What do you
doing
think
that.
it is, you know, being certified and being an expert, as I would imagine you are in this field, what do you think gets triggered in somebody that ignites that anger, such as, and I'm going to go back to road rage again, because it seems to be a very big thing in America, but what do you think it is that ignites that? Is there a remedy or something that kind of defuses that ignition switch?
Well, it's very difficult on the road, actually, because of you're in the confined space.
There's no place to go.
There's no place to go. You may be late. You know, it's very, very difficult. What
I have a
often
problem with the road rage. I don't so much have the road rage. I get the road rage at the road ragers.
yes,
I can't have someone, I guess you could say, almost attack you
exactly.
with the
It's
with the vehicle that
aggression.
could kill you.
It's aggression.
I take that very personal, and I got to tell you, I lose it. I lose
Okay.
it. And
So you need anger management?
well,
Is that what you're saying?
yeah, probably.
Because that's what Janine told me when we first started
Probably.
this show.
Probably.
She says this
I
is
I
the
don't
perfect
tolerate it.
anger.
I don't tolerate it. I don't. And I'll probably get shot someday or something.
Oh,
but-
please don't say
No, I mean,
that.
really, because I don't.
Really?
I don't like to
But what
tolerate
triggers that? See, that's the trigger point. What I'm saying
Yeah.
is there something in us that triggers that emotion that creates that anger?
Yeah, usually it's like what you said. He stepped over the boundary there. It was aggressive
And
kind
then
of
they're yelling at
behavior.
you know?
Aggressive behavior triggers somebody in some way from something that happened as a child, whether in the house or at school. Perhaps he was bullied, and something that is common in what people who violate boundaries.
It's funny that you say that. You know, we've got a few minutes left. My father, and every once in a while I bring him into the equation. My father was a very thin man, Italian,
Okay.
and he had a temper that was the worst I've ever seen in anybody, and I'm glad I didn't inherit that.
Oh, me too.
The
We're all
point
laughing.
I'm getting at is the man, you can go like this and you can knock him down, but yet he was very forceful and very demanding. And I found out as a child, my grandfather used to beat him up, stepped on his face and crushed out his teeth,
Oh my
There you
goodness.
and made him wear my aunt's panties to school when his underwear wasn't clean.
And you wonder.
And you know, I found this out years later, and I used to see that man. One day, my mother put a piece of chicken on the table, and he didn't like chicken, so he got up from the table and he took the chicken, opened up the window, and threw it out on the front lawn. To us, it was horrifying, but the slightest little thing triggered an anger in him, and what you just said, it came from childhood. So you're saying that a lot of these people that have this, it comes from an
Often,
emotion or
not
something that was
always.
affected as a child.
Yes, often. Sometimes it's learned like that from childhood. You can't help it because your role models all around you are doing that. Sometimes it's a defense. If you were bullied either
Which he was.
by the adults at home or at
We got
school.
2
Yeah,
minutes
I
left,
just
Tommy,
wanna
real
say,
quick.
I wanna say
make sure
something real
one thing
quick.
first. I just want to make sure that Janine, you do get her information, the posters up on the board, on the screen, so that people can contact her and finish out what you're
Thank
saying.
you.
and-
There's a commonality. Bullies and people who are bullied have low self-esteem and low confidence, so they act out. Now, anger and stress in the middle range, this being violent, this being depression, in the middle range is fine. It's how we cope with it when our level gets so high that you topple over.
Very interesting. People need to contact you. How do they find you?
My website is balanceandpower.com, and my phone number is 516-623-4353. I have a half-hour free phone consult, and my office is in Westbury. I also give trainings and see some clients on site.
Very good.
Well, Eileen, I would love to, I want to thank you for coming in, but I really would like to go further, because I know we didn't even get into the holistic stuff, which is something
Yeah,
I'm
I'd love
very,
to have you back.
I'm really
Okay.
into the holistic stuff.
Now
so
that I know how to get
we would-
here.
We would love,
Yeah.
we would love
We're
to have
running-
you come
we're
back
running out
and
of
continue
time,
this.
So thank
but,
you so much.
Thank you so much for coming in.
My pleasure.
And
Thank
It was
you.
a blessing to have you here.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you so much for tuning in to another edition of the Long Island View. I'm Tom Mealy,
I am Tommy Marr.
and we'll see you next week, same time. And a special thanks to Public Access number 20, or Channel 20 there on Cablevision for having us on, and to all the people that are watching. You can always find us on the web, at our website at mhtv1.com. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next week.
Have a blessed week.
Drive is wrong. Six stones won't take his course. Got the plan. And if we see it's the best of worlds, feeling like nothing can go wrong. You're the decider of the world, you get to know. 'Cause
Welcome to the Long Island View. I'm Tom Mealy.
I am Tommy Marr.
You know, Tommy, and every week I say this, that, we've got some of the most incredible people on Long Island that come here to the studio. And again, I have to reiterate time and time again that this show is designed to spotlight on people making a difference, special people that truly go out of their way to make a difference, and the talent that we have on Long Island.
Well,
it's amazing.
It's the caring that I'm impressed by. That, because in the world that we live in today, there's not a lot of people that care. And when you get a chance to meet people that truly care and are not doing it for profit or doing it because what's in here,
It's amazing.
that's the people I want to deal with, and that's why I love that we can have this platform to show these people that do care, because the world needs a lot more of
The
them.
show we have tonight, folks, is a very, very special show, and this is going to be a prelude to something that's going to be filmed here at the studio for Cablevision. And this particular show is not only dedicated to a specific individual, it has to do with such, I don't even know where to begin, this crisis
Epidemic.
that we have here on Long Island, that people really, truly have to get educated. Now, normally, you and I do about a 10-minute monologue before we start, but I got to tell you, I want to get past the monologue because this is so important. We are honored to have here tonight in the studio an individual who lost her son due to a heroin overdose. And you may remember this individual by her national commercial that's out there, her son Tommy Ventura. Linda is here in the studio today. Donna DiBiase, who, if you're living on Long Island and you don't know the name, then you're living in a box, who has been an inspiration to so many people here on Long Island, has dealt with Walk and Channel 55 and has been in the media more times than I can think of. We have Anthony here tonight, who is associated with this incredible organization. So I want to leave it to you. Introduce our guest tonight.
Well, I am so honored to have these people that I know for a very short time and already love them because of what your soul is doing and what your heart is doing, and all my blessings to you, and the courage and love that you are sharing with the world, not just locally, with the world is amazing to me, and I'm so proud to have you three people here. And it is an epidemic what's going on. I mean, today I saw in the news there was a big bus today, 4 big guys I guess got it, and I guess you would be the first person to start with.
Linda,
Because-
you're with the help of Donna
Yes.
and Anthony. You guys are going to do a show, and the name of this show is Long Island in Crisis. Tell me about it, Donna.
Well, it was something that I had a vision for, I would say, for the last year. I was thinking of something. I had the honor to meet Linda a year ago around this time on a bus, the magical bus ride. And we were advocating, along with Anthony Rizzuto and so many other people such as parents who lost their kids, parents who have their children in recovery, clinical directors from rehab centers, representation from members from LICAD. So we went up to Albany. I'm going to have Anthony really explain in detail what that ride was all about. And, I was personally affected and lost someone very dear to me, like my niece. She passed away in August from a heroin overdose. And there are so many people that I know who lost their children from a heroin overdose. And there are kids whose lives are being stolen from them every single day. So, with that being said, something had to be done. Yes, there are stories in the papers, and yes, there are, radio programs or local shows that are doing this sporadically. But something needed to be done, I felt in my heart, on a weekly basis. every week consistently. So we would be able to channel out and tell people you can get help, okay? And most importantly too is education. There's so many areas to cover. So I had this vision, and I presented it to Anthony Rizzuto and to Linda, and I know they will give a full explanation of what they do, and they really grasped the idea, the whole idea and the concept. And then I came to you. So here we are. And the vision that I had and the name that I had is exactly what we're going through. Not only are we going through this on Long Island, I mean, this is a plague across the country, okay? So we are in a crisis, okay? And there are lives being lost every day. And you know, each month or every 6 months, numbers come out. Yes, there was a recent article in Newsday that was just in this past Sunday's paper that said, yes, you know, the death rate is going down because why? We're educating with Narcan. But these numbers, you can say, yes, they are going down because of Narcan, but still, you know, to see who died, you know, yesterday and who died a month ago, those numbers aren't taken, you know, are really there. So, with that being said, here we are. And I first would like to have the honor of introducing Linda Ventura. And when I heard her story for the very first time, we were in a senator's office in Albany. And when she said her story, it literally made me drop down almost to my knees. And I'm gonna have
Linda.
Linda speak.
Your son, Thomas,
Yes.
he was how old?
He was 2 weeks short of his 22nd birthday, so 21 years old. Baby.
He got hooked on heroin.
Yes. Started actually with alcohol, cigarettes, and pot. Prior to, didn't go right to heroin.
And I mean, you know, none of us have, I have never experienced this before. I know a lot of people who are involved with it. What were you going through? What did you do? And what brought you to this point that you feel so strongly about getting this message out about kids, children today that are utilizing heroin?
Well, unfortunately, in my family, we lost all 3 grandparents, and my ex-husband and I divorced in a period of 3 years when Thomas was 12 to 15. So he started to self-medicate with alcohol, with cigarettes, with smoking pot. I saw the change, so unknowing to me, he was my child that didn't have a shutoff valve. So his first substance, it was off to the races. So through high school and, you know, we get to the point now he's shooting heroin. My ex-husband and I don't see eye to eye on everything. However, that being said, I'm a single mom. I have to go to work. So I have to keep my faculties. I have to not talk about what's going on at home because I have to earn a living and I have to take care of my family. But the insanity ensues at home with a kid that's running crazy. And I have 2 other children at home that I need to be a mom to. So I'm trying to work, trying to worry about a kid that I don't know if is this going to be the phone call? What is going on? You know, trying to seek help. I was told on many different occasions he's not high enough for treatment. He's not high enough for
told you that?
treatment.
The municipalities?
No,
hospitals?
the hospitals. Not high enough for treatment.
But
That's
they knew that he had this problem,
Absolutely.
and they turned him away
Correct.
because they didn't feel he was high enough.
Correct.
So what point did he have to be at for the hospital?
Well, that's an interesting question. So that's the criteria that we've
Right.
advocated for to have.
So we set a criteria
Yes,
in New York.
yes,
So a child has to be at a certain level of dependency on a powerful drug like heroin before the hospitals step in and do anything?
It's the same with mental health, too. It's the same thing. Schizophrenics, it's the
Well,
same
no,
thing.
I don't think so.
It is.
Well,
Trust me.
but we were also told, you know, he had to fail at outpatient. He had to fail at outpatient first before he could have inpatient. So now you have a kid that's, you know, trying to go through detox, not comfortable going through detox, but you can't die from detox from heroin. You'll want to kill yourself, but you won't die. So as soon as everything becomes very uncomfortable, who are they going to call? They're not, they're going to call their dealer, and they don't want to feel that. It's the pain from that is inhuman. So that's one aspect. And then you have a kid that now you have to get to outpatient. You have to, have him get to meetings when he clearly needs to be inpatient, removed from his substance, removed from his friends, removed from everything, so that you can really get to the bottom of
Because the detox wants you to have more. Am I correct?
the
When you're going
detox.
through the detox, when you're trying to recover from that, it's just reaching out to you and asking you to grab more.
Well, the detox, they can give you medications that can assist so that you're not so uncomfortable going through that process.
But the want is to grab more.
The want is always to grab
And
more.
the solution is to put them in an inpatient situation.
Absolutely.
And that's what they don't do.
And that's what they don't do.
Real quick, Tony, and we're going to get back to this, but I want, Anthony, tell us how you're involved with this.
So I work in the field. I started working in the field. I was in business for myself. I came into the field about 13 years ago. And the way I got connected to this right here was, and Linda and I had met maybe a year ago in Albany, and I met Donna at that time as well. I work in the field, and working in the field, you get to deal with people that are struggling with this disease on a daily basis. And what really prompted me to go from just doing the work I was doing to becoming an advocate and an activist was that I was getting a lot of people, Tom, one of the problems is that when a person struggles with the disease of addiction, part of the problem is that they don't see themselves as having a problem. And the people that love them and care about them say, look, you need to get help. You need to go for help. I'll take you. And a lot of times they're resistant to that. But there comes a time where they say, okay, I'll go. And when they finally take them, and you take them to a professional and they do an evaluation, and they determine that you need to be in a detox, or you need to be in a rehab, or you need to be an outpatient. Often what was happening is we'd make a phone call, and we'd call up the insurance company and say, listen, Tommy is presenting with opiate dependence. He needs to be in a detox 3 to 5 days. We would hear stuff like, opiate withdrawal is not lethal, so he doesn't need to be in an inpatient. Have him go to an outpatient and put him on Suboxone. This kid's shooting 15 bags a day. What are you talking about, outpatient? And then we'd hear stuff like, has he been an outpatient before? No. Well, he's got to go to outpatient, fail an outpatient, and then call us back.
The way I'm seeing this is it's not just getting the kids educated in why this is so bad, but it's changing legislation.
And that's where it came in.
And that's the
Yeah.
problem.
Yeah.
So we go back to the same issue that we do on many, many topics here on Long Island. We go back to the government and who's running the government, making these decisions. So the reality of this, and I guarantee if it was one of their children, it'd be a different story. Because I've gone up against the government more time, or the local municipalities more times than I care, and I have no problem doing that. When I start talking and the motor starts running, people start listening. The point is that had the municipalities changed that legislation, or if legislation was changed that you are now, if you have this dependency and you know that that's what it's going to create, you should put them in a inpatient situation before it gets any worse. But they don't do it because they don't feel that it's necessary. Thomas would be alive today.
Perhaps, yeah.
Perhaps.
Absolutely.
I'm not saying that the kids shouldn't, that this is an excuse to go ahead and doing it. Let's face it, when I was in the military, I was with NIS, I was with Naval Intelligence, Drug Enforcement, and I saw a ton of this stuff. Not
Oh,
to
wow.
this level, but back then it was black beauties and blotter
Yeah.
acid and all of that. And I saw how people depended on this and how people tried to get out of it. You got to want to help yourself. It sounds to me that Thomas wanted to help himself. But every time he got to square one, the law would say, well, okay, you're okay here, so I can't put you there. And had that been a situation where they can put you in, then there is a better than average chance that he may be alive today.
I just want to correct something, Tom. my perspective is it wasn't the law.
Right.
It was really the insurance
Insurance
companies.
companies. It's the insurance companies.
You're right, Tom came to a point where he wanted to get help and his mom wanted to get him help. So there was that's a big hurdle. But when he went, okay, the barrier and the obstacle that prevented him from getting connected with the help that he needed often was insurance companies trying to
Yes.
give them less than what the treatment professional was diagnosing as the problem.
Right.
So the problem is that
So
the
it's not
person.
the hospitals, it's the insurance
It's the
companies.
insurance
again,
companies who withhold,
denying
right.
the very
Denying.
And
thing
how
that
do
you
they
pay
really
for.
know the condition of that kid? Why would they be entitled to make that decision?
Someone sitting in.
And not the
in-
professional that's
Right.
in front of the family and the person
So
who
how do
needs
you
the help.
change legislation to allow this
Well,
to
that's
happen?
what we
do
did.
you do?
That's
And
what-
that's what we
That's what
did,
we
and
did.
that's where
We did.
that's how we ended
Yeah.
up meeting. We ended up meeting because we realized that this can't continue. We got to get together. So we started coming together. A bunch of us came together in the field, and we said, "This is unacceptable. We got to change this." So we.
Oh, I do want to make a point, because I know
Sure.
you're, Anthony, I know you're the number guy. And I can't think of anything right now that's probably more important than making these people out here watching the show, the awareness of what an epidemic this has become, because the average mom and pop
Right.
don't even know this is going
I'm
on.
glad you bring that up. Tom.
And from what I understand, you're the numbers guy, and I think that we need to slap everybody in the face right now and wake them up and let them know how close to home this really is and what an epidemic on Long Island.
So-
Not just Long Island, but
right.
right now we're talking about Long Island.
No, that's a great
It's-
thing.
It's an incredible,
So usually I start off by saying that the CDC, the Center for Disease Control, has classified this an epidemic. That's the extent of this problem. The Department of Health considers it a major public health concern. This is not limited to Long Island, although Long Island and Staten Island are two of the hardest hit areas. We're talking about, we lost over 300 people to an overdose, and a lot of them were under the age of 25 years old. In Staten Island, they had a 212% increase in the amount of people that died to this. If you take a look at the ravaging that this is causing to our communities, to our families, how many people are being broken apart? That's what put us into action. What we did was we decided to come together and we decided to go after and get a bill passed that would say, rather than the insurance company determining the course of treatment, who has a fiduciary interest in the decision, it should be the treating professional. And there is law in Pennsylvania, P Act 106, which says that if you go to a doctor or a psychiatrist and he says, Tommy, you need 21 days in rehab, he gives you a script.
Right.
And as long as you go to a place that's in network,
Right.
they have to pay.
Well, hold on a second. That's partially true. But an insurance company also has the right to deny pending arbitration on whether or not that they pay that. I see that every single day. So even if Dr. Jones tells the insurance company, yes, you have to pay that, a lot of people don't know that that carrier has the legal right to say, you know what, I'm not going to pay it pending an arbitration hearing, which is by a judge. And we all know that those arbitration hearings, they take months, 6 months, 8 months sometimes to get to them. So that's their loophole. So that in and of itself, I don't know if
It's a
that's going to be
barrier.
effective.
Barrier.
Right.
Because the window, when the person says, okay, I'll go, that window of opportunity is very small.
very small.
And if you don't jump on that opportunity, that willingness
So
that
what
they
do we
have
do?
today.
What do we do, Anthony? I mean, here we
You have to get
Linda,
treatment on demand.
You
have to get treatment on
Linda,
demand.
how do we get this message? Long Island in crisis. I mean, 'cause it's a heavy thing. How do we get this message across?
So, I was quiet for the first year after Thomas, and then I started a nonprofit organization called Thomas's Hope. And Thomas's Hope, our mission when we fundraise is to educate and perhaps scholarship addicts that don't have coverage into treatment and or provide whatever they need to really foster their sobriety moving forward. But my heart is also on prevention, because if we're not going to have the same conversation 5 years from now, we have a whole new generation that's coming up that these children and parents need to be educated on, on drugs, on alcohol, on cigarettes, on everything. When you look at a child's birthday party and all the adults are drinking, what's wrong with that picture? Because I know that a 2-year-old can work my iPhone or my iPad. So they are paying attention to what goes on. And I'm not trying to say don't drink, that's not my intent. The intent is you have to be very careful of what you do and the message that you send to your children. How do you have a good time in life? What does that include? What does that look like? All of those things go into building a very, protective factors for children. So that's
That's
one
early.
thing. And another thing, it has to be earlier intervention, appropriate level of care, and, and care on demand for people that are coming. If we stop a disease in its infancy, the chances for success go up dramatically. So if Thomas had diabetes and he was 300 pounds, overweight teenager, but refused to diet and refused to exercise, would they have cut off treatment to him? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. So if we're talking about the disease of addiction, then it's a disease. Treat it as such. It is not a choice. That child made a choice once. One time he made a choice. And then it was off to the races for him. He suffers with a disease, a mind disease. That's what addiction is.
It is. It is. I mean, I'm not ashamed to admit, I'll be 35 years in August.
God bless you.
It was alcohol, but I was in there with all of these people with the methadone, and I used to watch them lick the cups, and and I've lost many friends that I grew up with. So I have seen it. I've seen the destruction it can cause. I've seen the families it's destroyed. I mean, people don't really think about that. I mean, that is even. I mean, they're gone, but the damage was never gone, and it's like another thing too is when they do go in and you do get them in, they can sign themselves out too.
They can sign themselves out.
Because
That's a
3 or 4
problem.
days later, they're like, hey, I'm feeling good, I got this, or I want to go back, all right, I'm going to satisfy, I'm going to go in, because I've seen that when I was in there. I was in there 8 weeks, and I saw a lot of things happen, and I seen a lot of people coming and going, and I mean coming back, and in, out, and I mean it was
Children
it's-
under the age of 18 should not be
Right.
allowed to sign themselves
I
out.
agree.
Right.
I agree.
So I think there's several pieces to this puzzle. So one of the pieces, what Linda's talking about is the prevention piece, right? How do we prevent the next generation from getting into this?
Awareness.
And I have to tell you, I am 100% behind that. But then we have the people that are in the grips of it right now, and how do we get them the help that they need? And one of the things that we had been doing is working towards getting legislation passed. Just today, the Attorney General put out a press release
Yep.
that they went after one of the insurance companies for denying people access to treatment. I think, if I remember correctly, the press release said about 10 times greater the denials for treatment for substance abuse than they were for medical treatment. And now we have parity, and they can't do that. And I think in total, so far, the AG has gone after about 5 or 6 insurance companies
You know who
to
they
hold
are.
them accountable. I don't remember the one that it was today, but I know they've gone after Cigna, I know they've gone after MVP, I know that they've
Value
gone after
Options.
Value
Yeah.
Options, I know they've gone after a few of them. And this is gonna continue. And the new laws that we got passed last year, there was a whole bunch of us, FIST, Families in Support of Treatment, Thomas's Hope, LICAD, LYRA, there was a whole bunch of groups that came together to go up to Albany to fight. Those laws will take place in April 1st. But I would say, we, as people in the treatment field, it's like we're going into a gunfight with pea shooters.
That's what it sounds
Right.
like.
Yeah.
And our hands are kind of being tied. Even when they get approved, often they'll get 5 days or they'll get 7 days. So the family who has been paying into this policy forever,
Right.
saying, God forbid anything ever happens, I got coverage. Often what will happen is when they find out that their loved one has a problem, after the crisis, they're going to call up the insurance company. Do I have substance abuse benefits? Yes, you do. Is Seafield a network? Yes, they are. Great. You're going over there. And they come over there, and having the benefit and being able to access the benefit are 2 very different things.
Exactly.
And that's where the struggle comes in.
We got a few minutes left. Donna, how do we get this message across and tell us about the show Long Island in Crisis?
Well, we get the message across when the show does debut, okay? The outline of the show, basically, is, of course, Linda will be our host. But how do we get this across, okay? Each week, we plan on having a parent, okay, on the set to tell their story. Each week, we plan on having someone who is in recovery. Each week, we plan on having someone who is part of our mission, whether it be a provider, whether it be a support group, and we keep putting it out there. We want to get this out into schools. We want to educate people on being trained right now, which is so important with Narcan. Okay? You don't even have to have someone who's in your family or someone that you know that is an addict. But if you go for the hour and a half or 2-hour class that you have to take at whether it be at your local high school or your fire department to have that kit, and God forbid something happens, you're there to help save a life. So this is basically, what it's all about. It's continuing the education. It's continuing to advocate together. It's continuing to do all this because if it's a total of 5 shows or 10 shows, save one life, it is so well worth it. And also, it's to educate doctors. It's to educate that doctor in an emergency room when a child is brought in who has overdosed, okay, and not have them saying, okay, there's a problem here. There are some hospitals that I'm familiar with on the island that is equipped there to keep that patient in there, to help them go through the detox. But there's also so many other facilities that you're saying, okay, you can go home now. No, we don't want that child or that person to go home. We want them to stay. We want them, to get evaluated, and hopefully with a transition by having them from that point on, from that hospital, from that emergency room, go right into a facility, okay, to save a life. There's so much to cover here. So that's what we want to do.
We're gonna try to do it. Unfortunately, we are out of time. I can keep this conversation going for the next 2 hours.
Yes, we
but
can.
Unfortunately, we're out of time. I want to thank you, Donna, Linda, Anthony, for coming on the Long Island View. Ladies, Long Island is in crisis, and I think it's time that we all step up to the plate, get educated about this, because I would assume, Tommy, correct me if I'm wrong, there is everybody that's watching this show knows somebody who knows somebody who knows somebody who has a
Yeah.
situation like this going on in their family.
And also too, and I'm sure each one of you could attest to this too, is, the price of heroin is so cheap that these kids, it's so accessible to them.
Right.
Exactly.
I know we have to wrap it up, we're getting the sign, but parents, don't think this is not available at a very cheap price to go out in the street, probably on your block. So your parents got to play a big part in this and really, really watch what's going on.
Thanks for watching the Long Island View here on Cable Channel 20. We'll be back next week.
Hey ho, on the road again.
Welcome to another episode of the Long Island View. I'm Tom Mealy.
I am Tommy Marr.
I got to tell you, that last episode that we did with Long Island in Crisis was just, it got to me. I got to a point where even I didn't know what to say.
Well, like I said on that show, I lived through that, so I can really relate, and I really take my hat up to it.
Unbelievable.
I'm so glad that we're a part of it. I
Yeah,
am.
so am I. And in case you missed it, you got to go back. We're starting a new show here called Long Island in Crisis, and the host is going to be Linda Ventura. And in case the name sounds familiar, Linda lost her son Thomas to a drug overdose, heroin. And right here on Long Island, she's the one who does the national commercial where she holds up the phone and says, "I wish I could get a text one more time from Thomas." And, you know, heroin is out of control. It is a cheap drug, and it's readily available. And unless you people out there, the moms and the pops and the caretakers of these kids, get educated, we're going to have a massive problem. So I urge you to tune in to Long Island in Crisis, which is going to be coming up in May this summer. So don't lose it. In the meantime, we have another incredible guest here on the Long Island View. And Tom, maybe you want to introduce this
I
gentleman.
would love to. I know Chuck for a while now through Facebook, and we've talked many, many times. He's an incredible man. He's a great musician. He's into music. He's also into the environment, and this is my man, Chuck.
You know, I
Igo.
gotta, before we bring Chuck on, I don't know if we did or not, no, we didn't. Before we bring him on, you know, he is talking about something that we see every day that is a chemical that's out there every single day
Right.
that we touch, some of
Right.
us. I know that
Kids.
when I bring my kids to the bus stop, I see it. I touch it sometimes. I lean up against it. I see the kids leaning up against it. And we
never
don't
mind
realize
what
the danger.
Well, I'm sure Chuck will
So,
enlighten us, but
Chuck?
I'm sure
Tell us what this danger is.
Before I tell you what the danger is, I want to compliment both of you on what an incredible show.
Thank you.
What an incredible job you're doing. For all the viewers, this is the future, right here. Internet television.
Well,
And
let's hope so, because
Yes.
Lord knows conventional television charges too much.
I'm here to talk, first off, I'd rather be talking about music, as Tommy knows, but I am here to talk about pentachlorophenol is the name of the chemical.
Pentachlorophenol.
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 Pentachlorophenol. I only learned about this about a year and a half ago after Sandy. We now have very large new utility poles being put up, larger, stronger, and it drew our attention in the town of North Hempstead to this very black-looking oil leaching off the poles into the streets, into the ground. Didn't know anything about it. Turns out this chemical is really quite carcinogenic. And we have been trying to make everybody aware of that and explain to them, you know, the issues with these poles. We're trying to get pentachlorophenol banned. I brought here tonight,
And Chuck, though, I mean, I'm a kid of the 50s, and I mean, that still was there then, right? 'Cause
I'm not
I
a-
remember it as a kid.
right, so I'm not an expert in the field. What I can tell you is we used to use creosote, and we've banned creosote. We then went to pentachlorophenol. This is what I'm here. There are alternative solutions to having to use pentachlorophenol utility poles.
Well, can you tell us
There are,
what this is
Right.
doing to
Well,
our
hold on a
environment?
second. Let me back up here for a minute. We have to preserve these poles that are in the ground. First of all, I think that we should have no above-ground wiring to start
Right.
with, because it creates a massive problem in a multitude of different facets. I think that all the wiring should be underground. It helps us better in a storm, a hurricane, you know, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But, you know, it's for as long as I can remember, like the old antennas that used to be on the roof, we remember telephone poles. Don't you think we're at an age now where that wiring should be going underground and we shouldn't be using telephone poles?
I believe that it's a utility poles are probably still going to be needed. You can't bury everything. But I do believe in towns, and I'm using the town of North Hempstead as an example, where 90-foot poles 3 feet in diameter into the center of a sidewalk where we're trying to walk down the sidewalk makes absolutely
I've
no
seen-
sense whatsoever.
They're making developments, and I see them in Florida, I see them in Arizona, I see them actually in California. They're making developments where everything is underground.
Correct. So I'm in agreement with you, and I'm saying that if you can bury, I guess that's what should be done. I know that there are other places like Maryland, they're burying 2 miles a day. I mean, they have machines, they go right underneath the sidewalk. The whole process is done well. It's partly what I'm trying to raise here today, to your point, saying, why are we continuing to use, utility poles? And I'm going to keep saying again, in the center of sidewalks. There are a number of towns across Long Island that are very, very upset with the placement of the pole. So the placement of the pole brings up the issue of the chemical of the pole. We're not talking about a pole being put on the side of a road. We're talking about a pole, again, 3 feet in diameter being put in the center of a sidewalk near a
Right down at
school.
the end of your driveway.
Right, near a school, near a bus stop,
So why did they put a pole versus, we have technology today for different composites that are equally as strong to a solid pole like that? Why aren't we using composite material?
I'm asking the same question. I think everybody's asking that question now. Why can we not use, this is an FRP pole, fiber reinforced polymers. There are alternatives to using wooden, chemically laced poles. And if you're going to put a pole in a town, near a house, use something that is not chemically laced.
So
Until
what's their
such
reasoning?
time.
Have you lobbied for answers? Have you done anything
We are-
in Albany for the state of New York for answers?
Yes, I was on with Senator Schumer, who was here recently. I run a site called pentachlorophenol.info. You can find that on the site there. He speaks extensively to the whole issue that we're having on Long Island. We have the senator out in the Hamptons, Senator Thiel, Senator Martin, who are working to push, I guess, what's it called, lobbying to have the chemical banned on Long Island.
Let me ask you, is the chemical strictly for insects? Is that what it's actually strictly for?
I'm not an expert in the field, so I'm going to tell you what I know.
It's a preservative of some sort.
Basically,
I think it's actually- 'cause I was telling
this
him-
is how it goes. We cut a tree down, we put the tree in, we put many trees into these cylinders. We close the cylinder, we put pentachlorophenol in the cylinder, and we pressurize it into the pole. If that isn't bad enough, we then use P9 crude oil to put that on the outside of the pole. It's one of the pieces of the puzzle. So when the pole stands up, the centrifugal force begins to work, letting this stuff leach down the pole. The issue we have in the state of Vermont, they've had five instances where this chemical has leached into the groundwater, into the drinking water, and they now have serious problems there. I believe they now have that under control, but it's the pole is one thing. Placing the pole over your drinking water becomes a whole nother instance
How
unto
can-
itself.
how
And we
can
have,
it not
and we
be an
have,
Audrey?
there are 95,000 poles on Long Island.
Can that
but
kill you?
50 milligrams will definitely put you in the hospital, and 50 milligrams.
What does it take?
50
for that?
milligrams will
What does
put,
it take for somebody to do? If I walk down my driveway and they just put one of those poles in there, what would I physically have to do for that to affect me?
each person's different, but you would, here, I can show you, you could potentially get rashes.
And
The-
how is it not in our drinking water being? how
They
many-
test for it each and every, they test for it constantly. So you can get a rash. The inhalation is known to cause a multiple myeloma if you breathe enough of it. It's time. It's time for change. I'm here to say it's time to change. There are alternatives. Burying them is one of the points that you've brought up. Using fiber-reinforced polymer poles is another one. By the way, this is a company called Pultrusions. They're out of Pennsylvania. The reason I brought this here, which is really interesting to me, is the Long Island Railroad is putting in only fiber-reinforced polymer poles. So we have the Long Island Railroad
Poles or tracks?
poles. So the poles that are along the side of the track, at least in
Right.
Port Washington, this is the fiber reinforced polymer pole that they are now using. They're not putting in the wooden poles. So that should give you a message that says, if the Long Island Railroad can do it, why can we not go do it for our towns?
Is the cost factor on these poles higher or lower than the cost factor on a wood pole?
Excellent question, and here's how my answer. The cost of the pole is slightly higher. However, think about this, and I've learned. This pole is IEEE standard, so the pole has perfect reinforcement from top to bottom. A wooden pole does not. A wooden pole, as it dries out, can snap because it's not consistently tested from top to bottom. The wooden pole, when you slam it into the ground, is going to what? Rot.
Right.
It's going to have more things chewing at it. So the length of this pole, the duration of this pole, is far greater than it is with a wooden pole. With a wooden pole, you also have to come around every, whatever the number is, I don't know, 5, 10 years, dig the base of the pole out, and I think doing what you were doing years ago, and put more chemicals in there to reinforce, to make sure that there's no bugs that are there. The wooden pole leaches up to 8 feet from the centrifugal force, from the chemical leaching out of the pole. You can see from these pictures. Leaching out of the pole, around and down into the ground. This is not going to leach anything. So the answer is, if you compare a wooden pole to this pole, yes, this pole is a little more expensive, but it's not over time, it is not more expensive, and it's better for our environment. It's not a danger to our children. It's
better looking.
It's consistent.
Than to have a wooden pole.
And never mind the forest. I mean, the
Yeah, well,
trees
that's
that
another
they're
thing.
chopping down.
Sooner or later, we're not gonna have any trees left anyway, but if a vehicle hit that, the vehicle's gonna chop that in half. If a vehicle hit that, what's gonna happen?
I don't know the crash standards for these
I
things.
overheard one time that the reason,
it's safer.
and I overheard this, I don't know where I heard it from. This argument came up several years ago, and one person said that if a vehicle hits that pole, it'll snap. Because these have been around now for, I would say, at least 5 years now, correct? Or maybe longer? Not near this pole, but the idea of putting these poles.
Yes.
That this would not. Is there a safety hazard if somebody hit the pole versus that, do you know?
My personal opinion, I can't imagine it's any worse than
I-
hitting. Yeah, you have to understand, in the town of North Hempstead, we have 90-foot poles. The circumference of the pole is almost as big as this table. If you hit it with a car, or you hit one of these that's larger with a car, I'm hopefully your airbags are gonna go off and do the job. Yeah.
I would agree. Now, is this a solid pole?
No, actually, another good point.
That's
When you
what I
drive
was
home
gonna
when you
ask.
drive home tonight, this is another interesting point. When you drive home tonight, you'll see that we put up wooden poles. Now, we run wires down the pole. So what do? We put more things around the wires on the side of the pole to protect the wires going up the pole. This is hollow. Wires can be run inside.
Right.
So when you put the pole up, you run the wires inside the pole, and you're
So
done. You've seen the little
what
boxes they
is-
have down below where you can, I guess they do their
Why would they be fighting? I can't wrap my head around it.
I'm asking, sitting
Same
right here, right
question?
now, I'm asking PSEG, and I think others are asking across the country, the same questions. And I think it's time for change. I think your shows, and the more that we talk about this, it will drive change. It will drive.
Because I would think the life expectancy on this is forever, unless somebody hit it.
I'm
I mean,
certain
compared to a
it's,
wooden pole,
oh, I'm certain it's,
because I mean, I have a pole across
I-
the street from my house, I'm scared me to death. And this is one of them really, really big ones with, everything on top. And it's actually like this. And I'm like, how long can this thing last? Before it cracks in half. It's like bending.
I'm not an expert, but I have to tell you another story I read, and this is not a joke. The other issue we have is that the woodpeckers on Long Island peck at the wood that's filled with the chemical that kills the woodpeckers. So it's just one thing after another. There's the list of reasons of why we would continue to use wooden poles. I just think it's that time.
What did the senators tell you? What is their reasoning behind using wooden poles?
I don't believe the senators are addressing the pole, they're addressing the chemical. It's the need to stop using the chemical.
Okay, so now we have senators of New York, Long Island. I mean, are they just yesing you to death with a smile?
No, no,
or
no,
are
no,
they
no,
really
no,
doing
no.
something about it?
Everybody, everyone, I can give nothing but the highest regard to my town supervisor, Judy Bosworth, the senators. Everyone is doing their part. We are up against the EPA. The EPA sets the rule on this chemical. The EPA is.
So the EPA sets the rule on telephone poles that are placed in the ground by utilities.
They set the rule on pentachlorophenol, which
Okay, so why
which
doesn't
by
the
the way,
utilities
which
go
by
after
which
them?
by the way, has been banned in, I believe the number is 26 or 56 countries. We are the only country, I believe, left using the chemical. Secondly, the only thing it can be used for now, it can no longer be used. There's so many people who are getting sick from using it in their houses on building log cabins and things like that. It's banned from all playgrounds. It's banned from use for children's play sets in home. There's only one thing
So
left.
let's assume a
utility
utility
poles.
is using this chemical, and let's assume, and I'm gonna play the legal card for a second. And I have a child that goes out to that pole and plays around that pole and becomes ill, and the diagnosis is that the child became ill because of the chemical that the utilities are using on the poles. Are the utilities now held responsible Is there a liability there?
I'm not a lawyer, but I believe you are, right?
No,
So
I
let me
believe-
ask you.
no, Actually, no.
I have a
What
question for
believe-
I have a question for a question. Here's the question. In the state of New York, pentachlorophenol is illegal. If you are caught breathing it, inhaling it, you can do jail time. Tell
But yet the
me.
utilities have the right, according to the,
Right.
the.
So I brought you the law. I question, it's beyond, I cannot understand. We have a law in the state of New York that the fumes, and by the way, you had a lady who was here talking about chemical.
There is
The
a
prob-
subsection of the New York State Code that says that it is illegal.
Yes.
So if it is illegal, and here I go back to our great senators and our councilmen and all the people that run local government, if this is so illegal, why aren't they stopping it?
I think they're making every
That's what
effort to
he's
try and do that right now.
There
It
is
only,
no- But you see, Chuck, this is where I have a problem with this stuff, all right? And I think what you're doing is unbelievable, and I love this whole idea, and I think it's a wonderful thing. But I have a problem, just like the woman who was on before you, with the issues of heroin. You know, too many things are decided based on our local government. If this is illegal, and there is a subsection, and if you mind, I'm gonna take this tomorrow. I'm
This is
looking
all
up
for
your
you.
work.
This is all for
All
you.
right, there is an actual subsection of law in the state of New York that says that that stuff is illegal, but yet local government is still allowing the utilities to utilize it. I don't get it. What am I missing?
I thank you for asking the question, because I'm not a lawyer and I'm
What
not
am I
getting it
missing
either.
here?
That's
I'm
what
not
he's
getting it
asking.
either. I don't know. I don't know the answer.
If I drive my car out of the driveways and it's not insured, I get a ticket. If I continue to drive it, I get a ticket, I go to jail. Here we have a chemical which is lethal and banned in a lot of different cities and states around our country, but yet our local government and politicians are ignoring it. So the
I want to
question is
give,
why?
I'm going to give fairness to them. I do not believe they're ignoring it.
I
They are,
don't believe that for 1 minute.
okay.
And I'll tell you why I don't believe it. Because this says right here, and I'm going to read it because I want to read it. Okay, this is subsection 380 of the New York State Code, section 3380, talking about this chemical, clearly indicating that it is illegal to utilize this chemical. Clearly says that.
And says you will.
No person shall, all right? No person shall utilize this chemical, but local government does not step on it and say, make it go away. When we have a product that may cost, let's assume this thing costs
let me-
$1 more a foot.
You know what you need to look into, and again, this is another interesting thing. It comes back to the 90-foot poles being put in the center of the sidewalks. I believe utilities have their own, I'm not going to use the right word, I'm sure.
Exempt?
Eminent, yes.
They're
eminent-
not. They're not exempt from a, it's funny, today on my way to work, I hit a pothole. I'll tell you a funny story real quick. I hit a pothole, and I thought that I was in the town of Babylon, where this particular street was. So I called the town of Babylon, and I says, I hit a pothole. I have a 550 Mercedes. The tires are, I don't even want to tell you how much they cost, never mind the rim. And they said to me, come on down, set up a claim, and we'll take care of it. I said, what a beautiful world. I found out later that I was in the town of Huntington. So I called up the town of Huntington, and I just happened to know the attorney who was with the town of Huntington. He called me back, guy's name is Frank, and he says to me, he says, Tom, he says, we adopted legislation, or there was a specific law that we decided to adopt, that we are immune to any pothole damages on vehicles between, ready for this, between November 1st and March 1st. I'm sorry, November 1st and April 1st. All right, we're immune. So that's a pothole. How can something that's a New York State law
I agree with you.
be,
I understand.
there's no immunity here?
I'm, again, I'm not a lawyer, so my question is, how did the EPA approve something that in our state is illegal? I mean, even those things don't make,
Well,
don't they
I
just?
think that our senators have to bring it to a federal level at that point.
Are we at any point anywhere on Long Island where, when they do replace a wooden pole, that they are starting to use these?
That brings up yet another issue. When you drive home tonight, I would like you to look at all the massive number of double poles. We have the other issue.
I do see them.
The other issue
That means
is
the other
that
one's going.
if you're, I mean, this is stunning to me. Once the pole has been removed, it's considered hazardous
Hazardous.
waste. So now we have a
Another
whole
expense.
hazardous waste issue that we're trying to deal
And
with.
where are they putting?
I
these?
hope they are not putting them in the landfills. That's
Do
all I
you
can
think
tell
that
you.
They're not
they're-
putting
you
them
think
in
that
the
they're
reefs
doubling?
out in the
Do you
bay.
think they're doubling up the poles because they don't have any place to put them?
No, they're doubling up the poles because the poles next to it is
I
going.
agree, but do you think they're doubling them up because they don't want to remove the
No,
existing pole because they have no
the
place
double
to put
part,
it?
the double portion, this gets interesting. When a pole goes up, the electric company runs the top line, right? So they're running electricity. The middle section is the utilities, it's Cablevision
Right.
and all that. So as I understand it, the electric company cannot remove the utility company's services. The utility company has to remove the utility company's services. So until that's switched over onto the new primary pole, we can't take the
Want to
secondary
know
pole down.
something? He's 100% right.
I agree.
Pole was hit out in front of my house, and they put a double one up next to it. And for over a year, I fought with them to come and remove that one pole. It was an eyesore in front of my house. Do you know how I got them to remove it? I wrote a letter, and I said that I was hurt on this pole because it's sticking out of the ground. Now I put them on written notice. The next person who gets hurt on that pole, there's now written notice in the municipality. They are now on the hook for a lawsuit, because the law says that you cannot go after the municipality unless the issue is in writing. So if there is nothing in writing, you can't call them. Calling doesn't work. You can't send them a text or an email. It has to be in writing. Now they're on notice of the condition. Now they'll remove the pole. And that's exactly what I did. I called up, I told them I was hurt, I sent a letter. I think within 2 weeks, the pole was gone.
I'm laughing only because I can tell you the other solution to this is, and I could send you pictures, trust me, to cut the second pole and strap the rest of the pole to the top pole so that the second pole is technically gone, but you have a chunk of pole strapped with string up against the second pole. Listen, Long Island is an aging community. We must start addressing these issues. We must start looking.
At least start replacing the poles.
I
Well,
think that this is a great idea.
it's also, by the way, it's the look of the town. We're trying to get people to stay on Long Island. We're trying to get, businesses like yours to entice people to come work. We can't do that when we've got double poles, leaching poles. Some of these towns, it's just not conducive to doing
And you
business.
said before, and it's funny you said it, because actually there was maybe a week or two ago, I saw on the news that the people were out in front of their house, and they literally put a pole in the center of the sidewalk, in dead center of
Oh,
the
we saw it was
sidewalk.
on News 12.
I-
Yeah, I saw that. How do you do that?
How do you get away with
How's,
that?
since you're all from Long Island, just mull this over for 1 second. Hamptons. When you think of the Hamptons, what do you think of? Beautiful area, right? The big windmill, going out there to spend some
For the
time.
most part.
Okay. Now you can think of the Hamptons when you pull in, instead of looking at the nice windmill, to be looking at 230 90-foot poles lining the Hamptons.
It's amazing.
You know,
Chuck, we have 3 minutes left.
Okay.
And I know we didn't even get to your guitar. So
Yeah.
I'm
all
gonna
I
have
wanted
come
to say
back.
was, when I think of Madhouse, I think of music, because I played here once before, and I
Yes,
think
you
of
did.
this guy, and I only brought this to remind you of one thing. This is Cancer Awareness Month. My sister-in-law passed away, Regina Jabbour, from metastatic breast cancer, and it's all the more reason that I don't want to see this chemical around here. I play a lot of concerts for causes. He knows that. I'd be happy to come back and play anytime for any
Absolutely.
cause,
We'll have
for
you
cancer, whatever, because music is really what I love. This is a very, it's not the
Hey,
greatest,
listen,
it's not the
listen,
greatest
you got
subject.
two
so-
great things going on.
Let me
right
tell you
there.
something, that's very important, and the chemical that's on there is very important, and I'm gonna take this and look into it tomorrow. And if we can do anything here at Madhouse TV to get the message out that what they're doing is illegal, and transformation to those type of polls, we'll do everything we can.
Thank you very much.
Nice having you. We're out of time, another edition of the Long Island View, another incredible topic for the
He's
Long
good.
Island View. Call your local government, call the municipality, tell them to get the pole out of there, tell them it's making you sick, I don't care what you tell them. All right, let's get these poles installed into our neighborhoods and get rid of this poison that they're putting on these things that could ultimately affect us in the long run.
Yeah, I mean, write to your congressman. Maybe Chuck, can they contact you, or
Yeah,
is there?
pentachlorophenol.info.
Yeah, and if you don't know how to spell it,
Don't
okay,
ask us.
Go to our website. We're going to put something up on Madhouse TV.
Yeah.
It'll give you the spelling. Be up tomorrow. In the meantime, have a wonderful day, evening. Thank you again, Cable Channel 20 Public Access, for airing this, and we'll see you next week.
Have a blessed week, and Chuck, I'd like to thank you for all you do.
Thank you
Thank
for all
you.
you guys do. Thank you very much.